ladies and gentlemen, those who are gathered here, including my colleagues from the Department of Aviation, Deputy Director Marlo Butler, Ferron Moss, DeMarco Smith, colleagues again from Tourism Communication, doing a phenomenal job. Tourism Today, also Airport Authority, Director Security, BK Bonamy. Ladies and gentlemen, I always consider it such an incredibly enormous and humbling task whenever I have the opportunity to speak, and I really refer to this as an accountability update on behalf of the aviation ecosystem and those who are part of the vast aviation family, over 4,000 employees and 8 agencies who comprise the Department of Aviation. And of course, I'm also proud to stand in the office also not only as the Director of Aviation, but also as the Deputy Director General of Tourism. And our tourism colleagues scattered across the length and breadth of the USA are the key source markets who are making it happen for our country, ensuring that there is a synergy between tourism and aviation to ultimately drive economic success. So we certainly greet you. I make no apology by recognizing again and thanking God, who is the head of my life, and then the many persons who are part of the village whose collective contributions caused me to stand in this place today, including my mother, Strong Androsian, is probably tuned in today, and my family. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to the next slide, you would see when we speak about the Department of Aviation. Again, as I said earlier, it is a vast ecosystem. A lot of persons may not have an appreciation for aviation and its relevance until you might see the state of an airport that the Prime Minister masterfully addressed during his closing contributions today, with the announcements again of the most aggressive airport infrastructural development program in our country's history. Or perhaps when there was an incident or an accident, then persons began to speak about aviation. But our aviation ecosystem actually comprises some 8 or so agencies falling under the government's arm and umbrella, in addition to many of our strategic partners. We see again Air Accident Investigation Authority under the Ministry of Transport, but aviation partners. Of course, we have the Airport Authority, Bahamas Air. We have our Bahamas Air Navigation Service Authority, or BANSA, our Civil Aviation Authority, Freeport Airport Development Company, Nassau Airport Development Company, Nassau Flight Services. These are the core aviation agencies. We also added eventually the Bimini Airport Development Partners and the Allen Airport Development Partners. And of course, our many stakeholders, promotion boards such as the Bahamas Odd Island Promotion Board, the Nassau Paradise Island Promotion Board, your Bahamas Hotel Tourism Association, who have been tremendous partners, and also our FBO partners, your Odyssey, your Jet Nassau, and of course, many of our other domestic carriers and our Air Operators Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, I contend that what we have done over the past fiscal year really aligns and builds upon the success, the next slide, of the historic National Aviation Strategic Plan. Many of you would remember that on the 1st of July 2023, for the first time in our country's history, we launched the first ever National Aviation Strategic Plan. The plan has been working. We've been laser focused on achieving some of the key imperatives aligned again with the government's national agenda. But over the past fiscal period, we really focused on 3 components of this plan: our people, our projects, and our processes. Very deliberate in putting people first, because the success of the aviation and indeed the tourism sector, while we focus a lot on projects and improving our processes, is really driven by people, the hardworking men and women who really make aviation tourism happen. So we have deliberately coined an aeronautical term that this year we have filed our flight plan. If you go to the next slide, you'll see again that flight plan is really an acronym for what we seek to achieve and what we have achieved over this past fiscal year. Along the course of this particular presentation, you might also see QR codes popping up. If you pause and just scan the QR code, this presentation will also be made available to you, and it will give you again backstage access into all that we have been attempting to do in aviation. You can also go to the DOABahamas.com website. There are some giveaways for those who are joining our social media handles today. So please share the link, make the comments, and we'll take you on an interesting journey over the next few minutes. The acronym FLIGHT, if you see the next slide, it really speaks about what we seek to achieve in aviation and what we have been achieving in aviation. Let's go back to the slide with the acronym FLIGHT. So we have been future-focused. You'll hear us speak about some future-focused initiatives. We have been leveraging our strategic partnerships. That's the L in FLIGHT. The I speaks about what we all want to hear about, airport infrastructure and improvements. The G speaks about growing our airlift. The H, as a part of our focus this year, speaks on the human capital development. And the T speaks to our focus on training and development. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get up into our future-focused component of this particular presentation. We have been deliberate and intentional about what we have coined as the next gen or next generation aviation. It is our strong conviction that the future of aviation really begins today. We can't wait until 5 years or 10 years to plan a strategy for aviation. We need to plan now if we are going to reap the results or the benefits or see the transformation of aviation over the next decade or two. So our strategy speaks about a future-focused approach to aviation. So we have launched this year a Sustainable Aviation 2030 strategy in partnerships with our global partners such as the IDB and the United Nations and ICAO and other regional and international stakeholders. Of course, many of us know that the whole concept and idea of sustainability and resilience has been driven by our Prime Minister at both the domestic and the international levels. We've launched the Aviation Financial Resilience and Operational Efficiency Strategy 2013. We are holding each of our agencies accountable and creating a template for them to ensure that there is greater operational efficiency across all of our agencies. We're strengthening our aviation safety and security framework, and safety and security as at the core of what we do in aviation. We have, over the past 12 months, developed a strategy to incorporate technology and AI into all of our respective agencies, allowing for a more seamless flow when it comes to passenger travel, and of course, more technology that's driving the results across our agencies. We've undertaken a comprehensive policy, to holistically review and address all matters in relation to land use planning and development, especially in the vicinity of airports, to create smart airport cities. We know that airports are the commercial drivers, especially across our family islands. So we are being intentional right now of anchoring our airports or allowing our airports to be an economic anchor across our family islands and even in Nassau. We've launched again, and Deputy Prime Minister would have made reference to this during his budget contribution, the long-awaited digital immigration cards, where we collect data at the border, but more so where we improve the passenger experience. Many visitors come to our shores. We welcomed almost 1.8 million foreign air arrivals over the course of the last year. And you see them again when they come to immigration, and they're getting the pens, and they're using papers, and they're filling out those old-fashioned immigration cards, with the days for those ones are slowly dying, as we announce very soon the implementation of the digital immigration card. Again, the F speaks about a future-focused approach to aviation. The L in our flight plans speaks to how we leverage strategic partnerships. The name of this game is the 3 Ps, and not just public-private partnerships. It is partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. So we've established quarterly and consistent industry roundtables with our partners, including, like I said before, our aviation colleagues, our colleagues in tourism and investments, to ensure that all of the partners are on the same ship to drive an effective partnership in tourism and also in aviation. But in aviation, more specifically, there are some things that we have done to expand our global partnership and our global reach by hosting many initiatives in the Bahamas over the past 12 months. We hosted, over the past 12 months, the Conference of the Americas that brought participants from across the US and Canada and Europe and the Middle East and the Caribbean and Latin America right here to our shores. We hosted the American Association of Airport Executives. Over 100 persons came to our shores, airport executives from across, again, our region and the USA and Canada and your Middle East and your Latin American countries came to the Bahamas as an association. We hosted in our shores the Latin American and Caribbean Air Transport Association Forum and the International Federation of Air Traffic Controllers and the FAA. We hosted in February the most successful Roots Americas conference held at Atlantis Paradise Island. And the event organizers have said that they see why we always say and believe it is better in the Bahamas, because that Roots Americas conference held in February of this year was touted as one of the most, if not the best, Roots Americas conference in their 20-plus years history. We are hosting in just 2 weeks the Caribbean Air Handlers Association, and then later on in July, the annual Aviation Safety Conference, and then next year, we hope to host the groundbreaking first ever ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, legal conference right here in the Bahamas. We have been leveraging our strategic partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, when we speak about our partners, our aviation agencies are really creating waves, or I guess I will say in aeronautical terms, creating turbulence now in the industry. So I'll take a moment and just speak to some of their accomplishments and how they contribute now as our agency partners. The Airport Authority. Airport Authority, very proud of their achievement under the leadership again of Chairman Bevans and Managing Director Rutherford, but they have successfully completed the installation of new security equipment at LPIA. This innovative move on their part would have seen that at the U.S. checkpoint, we saw an increase of throughput from 260 to almost 4,000 bags per hour. That represents over 1,500% increase right now in terms of their efficiency. They've solarized 85% of airport ground aids. They've successfully completed the TSA audits at several family island airports, your North Eleuthera Airport, Governor's Harbor, and South Bimini. They've installed new aerodrome equipment, such as PAPI lights and beacons and wind cones at most of our family island airports. They've deployed new X-ray and AIT, your advanced body scanners machines at checkpoints. They've installed new cameras systems with 70% increase in footage reviews. The Security Department established a dedicated security intelligence unit. Since this implementation, I'm very pleased to announce that the Airport Authority under this unit has successfully intercepted and seized over $250,000 in undeclared U.S. currency. This is innovation, and this is what protecting our borders look like. They completed industrial agreements, historic industrial agreements over the past 3 years. Airport Authority has been doing very well. We're proud of them. We now look at Bahamas Air, our national flag carrier. Bahamas Air has expanded its fleet with the addition of an ATR 72-600 series. They have been focused on expansion of their routes throughout Nassau, going to Jamaica, and Freeport, and Orlando. They've been launching new routes from Lauderdale into Georgetown. And they have announced that over the next several months, we can expect new routes coming out of our national flag carrier. I'm pleased of the partnership with Bahamas Air, where they have partnered with Qatar Airways. They're improving operational efficiencies with Qatar. We just signed a new interland agreement with Emirates. They have been focused on their people, training their service ambassadors, their frontline workers, beginning with their cabin attendants and those who check you in. They have all been exposed to what is now a mandatory service ambassadors training to make Bahamas Air truly an agency of the government that we can be proud of as ambassadors. I'm proud that Bahamas Air just this week actually celebrated 52 years of safe, reliable, and efficient service to the islands of the Bahamas. So kudos again to our agency of Bahamas Air. Ladies and gentlemen, our third agency is BANSA, the Bahamas Air Navigation Services Authority. We sometimes refer to them as our air traffic controllers. We commend our air traffic controllers. We commend the relationship again with our Bahamas Air Traffic Control Union under the leadership of President McKinsey. And of course, Chairman Craig leads our BANSA along with Mr. Len King, Director. But BANSA has facilitated 4 airspace user consultation meetings on the revised Bahamas Air Navigation Overflight Origin and Destination Fees. They've commissioned new air traffic control management systems and commissioned new primary and secondary surveillance radar and automatic dependent surveillance systems. In Nassau, they have commissioned instrument landing system and commissioned automatic message handling system. They've managed, again, 3 SpaceX super heavy launches to Bahamas airspace to ensure safety and efficiency of airspace users transitioning the affected airspace. This has been they had no playbook as it relates to managing airspace. We've now entered into the space age, space technology, and I commend BANSA again for their bold initiative of bringing again some order and management to that particular component of aviation. Bimini Airport Development Partners. These are the new kids on the blocks, but they are making incredible waves in Bimini and in aviation. Bimini Airport Development Partners completed significant airside grading works. They've removed existing mounds and ponds and vegetation from both inside and around the fence lines in Bimini. They've installed new precision approach path indicator lighting systems, or PAPI systems, and replaced the existing runway lighting in Bimini, South Bimini. They've completed phase 1 of the apron expansion, materially expanding parking and taxiways. They've procured a new fire truck, and also with it, constructed a new garage for the fire truck. They've installed a new weather station and enabling live weather reporting from Bimini for the first time. They've commenced the construction of a new terminal building that will be completed by December of this year, and we hope to have ribbon cutting to the brand new South Bimini International Airport the first quarter in 2026. We are looking at responsibility and being responsible when it comes down to environmental protection, new fresh water and waste disposal utilities, continued apron expansion. They're standardizing their operational hours for longer hours to give Bimini the economic boost it really needs. And we've begun discussions already with major legacy carriers who have committed that come the opening of the new Bimini airports, new international airlift will be coming to Bimini. I turn now to Civil Aviation Authority Bahamas, our regulators. Civil Aviation, over the past 12 months, have successfully passed the FAA International Air Safety Assessment, or IASA, and they've caused the destination to retain Category 1 status, which is major for the destination. They've established and adopted regulations as it relates to space aviation, and they saw the successful implementation of testing for the conversion of pilots' licenses and AMT licenses. We have drafted regulations for parachuting and light sport aircrafts and urban air mobility and remote tower operations and ultralight aircraft, and established, very important, they have established the Family Assistance Regulations that plans to address assistance to air accident victims and their families in the event of an accident. Of course, this is in conjunction with our Air Accident Investigation Authority and our own in-house aviation crisis management team. We have established automated personal licensing application processing and have reduced the processing time and intend to do even more by at least 60% reduction in processing time. This is what efficiency looks like. They're establishing and adopting e-licensing, which is currently now in the beta testing phase. We go now to Freeport. another one of our aviation agencies. They have installed new access controls to improve airport security at the Air Traffic Control Tower in Grand Bahama. They have finalized and put in place a strategic plan for Grand Bahama International Airport up to 2050. I believe the first time an extensive business plan was developed for the Grand Bahama International Airport that extends beyond just a year or two. It goes up to 2015. They've removed vegetation and trees from the airport fence and expanded the international terminal arrivals. They completed again the taxiway lighting projects, phase 1, to enhance airport safety by modernizing modern, energy-efficient, durable alternatives to help reduce the maintenance costs. All of our aviation agencies have gotten the messaging that we need to improve operational efficiency and also move towards financial resilience. I'm pleased that they have begun some work on the Grand Bahama International Airport with the first phase that speaks to demolition. And the first thing they would have done also was to ensure that there was a newly renovated domestic terminal. We did that about a year or so ago. But demolition to the existing buildings have taken place, securing the U.S. pre-clearance, and we hope to get U.S. pre-clearance back in Grand Bahama. This has been a commitment of the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Tourism and Investments Aviation, Deputy Prime Minister, that we're going to do all we can to ensure the airport in Grand Bahama is constructed, and most importantly, that U.S. pre-clearance returns to Grand Bahama. They also began the process of acquiring a new fire truck to restore the airport to Category 7. I won't say much about the Grand Bahama International Airport because I'm certain that the Prime Minister, who appears to be on a roll after announcements today, will have some good news for Grand Bahama very soon, and also our Deputy Prime Minister. I want to take this back to Nassau with NAD, the Nassau Airport Development Company. NAD won again the best airport of the year in the region for 2 to 5 million passenger loads. They have launched the Guest Service Experience Program. Over 500 plus airport employees have been trained to date. NAD, just as they promised, began aggressive airside improvements. They successfully completed the $10 million rehabilitation of the runway ahead of schedule. They improved the runway's structural integrity and operational safety. And the project included the removal and replacement of over 484,000 square feet of asphalt in the central section of the runway. NAD has been committed to a new approach of the lighting system on runway 32. They replaced over 7,000 feet of perimeter fencing. And the third Pier C third carousel project, they invested over $1.3 million through the installation of the third outbound carousel according to the original design intention of the pier. This really significantly increased the availability of outbound carousels at LPIA. Many persons complain about the baggage and processing and the carousels, but NAD heard you and NAD responded again to the Pier C third carousel project. I'm very pleased that NAD saw the completion of Gate B28 and Gate C42, the concrete hard stands. That was major news again for some of our larger aircrafts. And NAD announced, stay tuned, because upcoming from NAD is the new airport lounge in the U.S. departure terminal and also for the LPIA hotel development. I'm very pleased again with Vernice Walken, the CEO, the president of NAD, and also Chairman Gary Sawyer from Nassau Airport Development Company. I jump in terms of the industry agencies' updates to Nassau Flight Services. Nassau Flight Services recently acquired the Bahamas Air Below Wing operations in Nassau, Exuma, San Salvador. We have Director Ricardo Roll, providing leadership there, and Chairman Obi Roberts. They've acquired a joint working group with JetBlue to enhance community involvement and outreach initiatives. They've procured a new set of aircraft stairs in San Salvador, very important for some of the larger crafts going into San Salvador. They've purchased essential ground support in Nassau and acquired new fuel dispenser for the maintenance department to enhance operational efficiency and safety. Now, Nassau Flight Service has secured a 3-year catering port agreement with British Airways and entered into a 5-year contract with JetBlue that allows for incremental price increases annually, supporting, once again, financial sustainability. Very important, again, across all of our agencies. This one is not really one of the government's agencies, but I want to really pause and commend Western Air. And of course, the CEO President, Rex Urol. Western Air, over the past 12 months, launched daily jet service between Freeport and Grand Bahama and Fort Lauderdale, adding evening flights in the summer of this year. They're expanding aggressively. They've added flights again between Nassau and North Eleuthera and Nassau to Exuma. They've taken delivery of their 7th Embraer 145 and also looking at other aircrafts with longer ranges. Western Air signed onto the GDS. That is a game changer for aviation, where Western Air can now use their technology and their upgrading system to connect with other airlines and travel partners, as well as modernizing internal processes. Western Air this year celebrates 24 years of service, and I believe that Western Air ought to be recognized and really commended. That was our partnerships with our agencies who are driving the success of aviation. I want to jump now into the I, into our flight plan. We did the F, we did the L. Let's now do I with the airport infrastructure improvement. This, ladies and gentlemen, is perhaps one of the most talked about components of aviation. The Prime Minister a short while ago just reaffirmed our view that this is the most aggressive airports infrastructural development program or initiative in our country's history. It has been coined the Renaissance of our family islands. And the Renaissance takes place again by us putting a committed focus on airport infrastructure. So I want to really dive quickly into what's in the pipeline currently in our 2025 pipeline, and then I'll tell you what you can expect now over the next 12 to 18 months. So within the next 12 months, or 12 months and under to complete, we are pleased that the Meguana Airport Terminal is nearing completion, with the expectation that by July of this year, we'll be able to cut ribbon at the Meguana Terminal. Governor's Harbor is 90% complete. We expect this year to have it officially recommissioned. Arthurstown Terminal and both the airsides will be completed this fiscal year, or this calendar year in Q4. Newby Terminal and airside, completed again by the first quarter in 2026. South Bimini Terminal on airside, we expect that to happen by Q4 of this year, December, or certainly by the first quarter in 2026. Yesterday, the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and the Minister of Works presided over an historic contract signing for Deadman's Key airside, $20.8 million. And the Prime Minister announced yesterday that we expect the contract for the land side of the terminal to Deadman's Key to be signed within the next 60 days. These are projects currently in the airport infrastructural pipeline. But we go beyond that because there are others coming on the ground, and we expect for ribbon cutting to take place at these airports over the next 12 to 18 months. We know that Exuma has been top of mind. On the Georgetown airside works, over $35 million to the IDB will be completed by December of this year. In addition to that, right now as we speak, we are seeing vertical evidence of terminal work taking place in Georgetown, with a terminal that is expected to be finalized with ribbon cutting by the second quarter of 2026. In addition to that, Exuma, that will become the hub for the central and the southern Bahamas, will have a brand new air traffic control tower and also a crash fire rescue building. Let's go again to Deadman's Key, 12 to 18 months to complete. The terminal on the airside will be completed. Black Point Terminal and the airside will be completed again next year by the second or the third quarter. We said North Eleuthera, and I want to pause for North Eleuthera because I'm very pleased to announce that the North Eleuthera International Airport, that active construction will begin in August of this year, through our partnership again with the Allen Airport Development Partners. So North Eleuthera, I know that you just got a temporary capacity relief that prevented you from standing in the rain or the heat. We just completed that about a week or so ago. Air conditioning, took care of some of the mold issues, new bathroom facilities and tilings, but that was only temporary. While we have put in place a temporary facility, your new airport is expected to begin in August of this year with ribbon cutting by August of next year, according to the developers. Rock Sound, as announced by our Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister, will have a new terminal and airside improvement projects, including elevation. Grand Bahama International Airport, you have not been forgotten. I won't even say anything else about Grand Bahama because this is personal to me for Grand Bahama. I've been a part of the community. It was one of the first projects that I had a chance to be involved in since assuming this office. There's been months and months of negotiation and looking again at what's right for Grand Bahama. But I'm very happy that we're in a place where Grand Bahama will get their new international airport, and there is not a day that goes by where Grand Bahama is not top of mind. Crooked Island airside, we expect work to be done in Q2, cutting down the hill in Crooked Island. And we also have plans to develop a portfolio of airports, as announced by our Prime Minister, both Tier 2 and Tier 3 airports across Andros and Abaco and Michael, San Salvador, Rumkey. Airport development is getting attention. The slide behind me tells what has already been done. The Great Habaki Airport. That will also be a model for many of the other airports across our archipelago. The next slide shows you, these are all photos taken this week, between Sunday and today. This is what's happening right now in Exuma. This is the Georgetown or the Exuma International Airport in Mostock, Exuma. We were there about 3 weeks ago. It did not look like this. So they're moving very aggressively. Right now, as we speak, this is what's happening as of yesterday with the Georgetown International Airport. The next slide speaks about Meguana. It's not some fallacy or what we want to do. This next slide is the airport in Meguana, taken some 3 weeks ago and is now completed end of this month. The next slide speaks about work in Bimini. You see the new fire truck there. That's been an evasive topic. You're looking at work happening right now in terms of terminal design and construction in Bimini as we speak. The next slide speaks to what's going on right now in Cat Island. You see the new terminal building going up, the fire station and the maintenance building going up right now in New Bight, Cat Island, and I can go on with airport development, but stay tuned. You will be getting more comprehensive updates on airport development. Ladies and gentlemen, there has to be a method behind the madness, and the airport infrastructure only supports as an enabler to tourism. If we build it, they will come. So there is this connectivity between tourism and aviation, between aviation infrastructure and tourism development. So the next slide speaks about our commitment. We begin with the end in mind. And the end in mind for airport infrastructure is to grow airlift, to aggressively grow international air stopover and domestic arrivals to all the islands of the Bahamas. And this next slide speaks to our achievements in aviation and in tourism in general. We knew that over 4.3, almost 4.5 million visitors came to our shores by the first 4 months in 2025. If we look at air arrivals only, you will see that air arrivals for the first 4 months in this year, actually, and this is foreign air arrivals, it actually surpasses the same period in 2019 and is on par with 2024 performance. So we are trending in the right direction with foreign air arrivals. But the wonderful takeaway is if we look at air arrivals in our family islands, you will see that Grand Bahama is exceeding. Abaco did the best year ever for air arrivals, and North Eleuthera. So our family islands are exceeding prior year's performance overall for air arrivals, and we're very, very pleased with our family islands and Grand Bahama. We're trending in the right direction for our air arrivals. But we're not just going to sit on our laurels. We intend to grow airlift. and aggressively grow it. You see, the name of the game is really putting butts in seats and heads in beds. That translates into putting money into the pockets of your local community. So all we do in tourism and aviation is really to benefit our local entrepreneurs and stakeholders across our community. So we're strengthening relationships. We're maintaining planning sessions. We're partnering with airlines and carriers and promotion boards and hotel partners and aviation agencies to drive success in tourism and aviation. We are advancing an innovative approach and strategy to airlift development, including private aviation, amphibious airlifts or seaplanes, making parts of the Bahamas, the Maldives in the region. We're looking at vertical airlift, your helicopters, and aerospace aviation, and drone technology, etc., to reflect aviation diversification. We're looking at air taxis, so the days for a traditional approach to airlift are things of the past. We've launched again our emerging market strategy, looking at the Middle East and Latin America, Europe and India and Africa. We're going beyond our key source markets, and we're going to where the business is in a post-pandemic environment. We're expanding new connectivity with interline agreements. Bahamas has signed one the other day just with Emirates. We've signed with Virgin Atlantic, Alaska Airlines to ensure that this approach to airlift really reflects a multi-destination approach, where persons can come from anywhere around the world to major carriers, and they can come to Bahamas here into Nassau PI, and then go into any of our 16 island destinations through Bahamas Air or Western Air or other airlines who are on the GDS system. We're expanding air service agreements across the length and the breadth of this, not just in our source market, in Europe, in Latin America, in Canada, in Africa, in the Middle East. We're going where the business is to put more butts in seats, more heads in beds, and more monies into the pockets of our local entrepreneurs and stakeholders. So what have we done? We've grown airlift. We've gone from Orlando to Nassau Southwest and Orlando Freeport Bahamas Air. Western Air has taken you Fort Lauderdale and Freeport, and American Airlines ramped up the Miami to Freeport service. American Airlines increased capacity Charlotte to Freeport, and Bahamas has started them Montego Bay. Makers Air did the governors from Fort Lauderdale, and Delta's been working with us from Atlanta to Nassau. Western Air again started domestically Nassau and North Eleuthera. We've looked at trade winds from Palm Beach to North Eleuthera and Marsh Harbor, and many are responding to the gap left by Silver Airways. These are airlines, these are commercial carriers who are saying that we see the value in creating connectivity and ease of travel to the islands of the Bahamas. Farmers Key the other day got a new airlift scheduled carrier from Nassau Flamingo Air. Rugged Island to Southern Air a few weeks ago. Tropic Ocean Airways began the North Eleuthera, Lauderdale. Makers Airs going into Roxang from Lauderdale. Southern Air, Rumkey, Stella Maris. And Cat Island is going to get new service come September of this year direct from Fort Lauderdale. We've worked with our Canadian carriers, Sunwing, and also Porter's Air, starting again by November anticipated, into Toronto, Montreal, and parts of Canada. We've attracted airlift out of Italy into Grand Bahama. So we are working very hard at ensuring that we put a strategy in place to attract more foreign and domestic air arrivals, not just for Nassau Paradise Island, but into Grand Bahama and the other islands of the Bahamas. Ladies and gentlemen, as we move towards an end, we look at the H in our flight plan. We did the F, we did the L, the I, we did the G, grow airlift. We now look at H, which is very important to me. It speaks about human capital development. Because I've always contended that even though we spend a lot of time and money and effort into developing projects, we are not going to be successful unless we develop people. Human capital development still gives us the greatest source of success in the aviation ecosystem. So we hosted the first ever aviation honors ceremony and an industry-wide aviation stars recognition. For the first time, they went to Government House honoring the giants in our industry. Some passed away after the ceremony, and we didn't kill them. I want to put that on record. But shortly after, but to see some of them there who have given 40 and 50 years of their lives to building our country, and to see them walking and some came with canes and refused to be helped up the stairs. Proud men and women who built our aviation industry, honored for the first time in the first ever aviation honor ceremony, was personally gratifying for me. We have launched an industry-wide talent acquisition, succession planning, workforce retention planning initiative. We've launched an industry-wide health and wellness program, focusing on the physical and the mental and the spiritual health of our aviation practitioners, through a recently launched initiative called Aviation Cares. We've formally launched and expanded the Bahamas Aeronautical Academy, and Deputy Director of Aviation Marlo Butler is working along, bringing leadership to this. We just came back from Middle Tennessee State University, and we are going to be doing great things with the Aeronautical Academy. 2 students right now are in Qatar, Aeronautical Academy, working with Embry-Riddle and many other tertiary institutions. But we are launching this academic year, upcoming, our first ever aviation cadet program, where we will be intentional about recruiting, training, preparing, equipping the future of aviation beginning now. So we're going inside of our schools right now in Nassau. Some of them are pilot schools in Grand Bahama, Exuma, Long Island, I think Eleuthera, as pilot projects for our aviation cadets. We've launched and will expand this year our Women in Leadership Mentorship Roundtable, where we're looking at an industry that is traditionally male-dominated, and we are bringing in females, many of whom right now sit at the helm, at the leadership of our organizations, like Tanya Pratt, the chairman of Bahamas Air, and Wendy Craig, the chairman of Banserv, and Vernice Walken, former Director General of Tourism, the CEO right now, and the president of NAD, and many others, and Rexia Roll, who is serving as the president CEO of Western Air. And these women are providing mentorship experiences as we now launch our Women in Leadership roundtables. But not just for the women. We're also launching our male leadership initiative, where the men in aviation are really going to be strategic about preparing the next generation of male leaders. So this is a very biased and non-gender focused approach to equipping the next generation to take the leadership in aviation. I'm very pleased that we have launched and will expand over the next year the Retired Aviation Professionals. We call it REAP. These are men and women who've given many years of aviation, but they still have so much more that they can give. And they have agreed that they will serve as mentors to the next generation of aviators. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the last thing is training. In our flight plan, we've did the F, we've been future focused, and we've leveraged partnerships, the L. We've looked at the I in terms of infrastructure. G spoke about growing your airlift, and H speaks about human capital development. And I now go to T in your flight plan, which is training and development. We have signed MOUs this year. We'll sign a lot more with tertiary institutions. We just came out, like I said, from Middle Tennessee State University with an MOU signed by Deputy Prime Minister and President McPhee, who is a Bahamian president. We've signed MOUs and about to sign, with IATA to begin the Bahamas being recognized as the regional hub in aviation. We're training frontline workers. Over 300 will be trained by the end of this year as service excellence ambassadors. We're preparing to launch our e-learning platform for at least 1,000 persons across the length and the breadth of our Commonwealth. We're launching our Leadership Academy for high potentials and emerging leaders in aviation. We're using a train the trainer, where we're taking folks from all across our agencies and exposing them to best practices in training and development, and allowing them to go there and import their training across our agencies. And we're launching our public speaking masterclass, where we're looking at managers in collaboration with Toastmasters International and also Writers Class, so that we are creating the next generation of not just thinkers, but writers and those who can articulate the goals and the vision of aviation. Ladies and gentlemen, I kind of rushed to that. It's been a short flight, but I want to let you know that we have a flight plan. We've been future-focused. We've leveraged our strategic partnerships. We've been laser-focused on improving airport infrastructure. We've been committed and will remain committed to growing airlift. We're developing human capital, and we're focused on training and development as a part of our 2025 FLIGHT flight plan. The next slide in closing gives you a QR code. Go on that QR code. It will give you an access into our back office. You will see our strategic plan. There are social media handles. I think that during today, I've been told in my office is that you follow us today on the social media handle, and you get a chance to win, I think, a round-trip ticket courtesy of Bahamas Air. If they don't know now, they do know. But persons who are signing up today, following us on social media, and again, we are committed to partnerships and development. I always contend, ladies and gentlemen, that mine is a privilege to serve alongside industry professionals, dedicated men and women, and when we become too big to serve, we become too small to lead. We have demonstrated servant leadership across aviation. We're doing it for tourism. We're committed to advancing the goals and the mandates of the government of the Bahamas. And it's my pleasure again as a young barefoot boy from Andros, who God has been really great to serve at this time as the Director of Aviation and the Deputy Director General of Tourism. Thank you so much for your attention this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Questions, please? Earlier you mentioned that the first phase of the Grand Bahama Airport was completed, if I'm not mistaken. I just wanted to know how many more phases are left and what does the timeline look like for completion?
Well, I'll say this, that immediately after the Dorian, and there was obviously damage to the domestic terminal. And so in January of 2024, January the 2nd, if I recall, they got commissioned or recommissioned the domestic terminal. And that was the first phase, just to bring about some immediate relief to a storm-damaged facility. And then following that, there was the demolition. When we speak about the first phase, we speak about the planning phase, because before there can be active construction, there has to be meticulous planning. So there has been months of planning for the Grand Bahama International Airport. And I won't preempt the Deputy Prime Minister or the Prime Minister, but I've been advised that great news is coming very soon for Grand Bahama, and all of the plans for construction are urgent. Grand Bahama has been long awaiting it, and I'm very optimistic that Grand Bahama will see a new airport come 2026.
I know, again, it was promised, or I guess said by the OPM, the first phase would be finished by the first quarter, and that has happened. What will we see by the end of this year regarding the continuing, I guess, what we'll see with the development of the...
I think what you can see is an announcement very soon, and the announcement will have the details for the development. But I would say I'm a part of the community in Grand Bahama, and Grand Bahama has been long waiting for something to happen. I've lived through Francis and Dean in Grand Bahama. I would have been impacted by Dorian in Grand Bahama, and I've given Grand Bahama my assurance, as has many others who are invested in this particular project, including the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and many others, that Grand Bahama is front of mind. It took longer than I personally would have expected, but Grand Bahama can expect great news, and I'll allow the Prime Minister or the Deputy Prime Minister to communicate that to them at the times that they have promised.
I also want to talk about the Aviation 2030 strategy, where I think it was highlighted strengthening aviation safety. I know there were certain things that were improved with each agency, but can you give a list of what specific areas would you, the ministry, like to see improved with aviation safety?
When we spoke about aviation safety in part of our plan, the IASA audit was a major component of aviation safety, because it spoke about the global agencies and the FAA looking and saying to us whether or not you are on the right track when it comes to your prioritization of aviation safety. We're very pleased that the FAA came, looked at our safety, security protocols and plannings through a rigorous audit, and said the Bahamas is able to maintain the Category 1. That's the first component. Obviously, there were concerns to aviation safety, but strengthening our borders. The Bahamas is in a position that is unique to any of our other counterparts. We manage over 28 airports to the Airport Authority, just in the Grand Bahama and Freeport. So we've been strengthening presence at the borders. We ramped up screening. Some persons might think it might be a nuisance to go through screening exercises, security screening, but they've gotten new airport screeners. We have acquired, again, a new X-ray. That's an advanced body screening X-ray machine. We're looking at the screening, again, not just of passengers, but also of cargo and of bags. So these are some of the things, when we speak about aviation safety. We're looking, again, at not just Nassau, but they're putting more eyes on the ground in our family islands, especially those islands where there are large amounts of passengers coming in. So we're very pleased that Mr. B.K. Barnaby, I think you're a former assistant commissioner of police, many, many years of experience. He's joined by many other persons who've been at the forefront of fighting crimes and using intelligence. And these are the kinds of persons who now sit at the helm at our airport authority, in addition to our civil aviation authority driving, again, the imperative for this to be a safe destination, again, through our aviation safety initiatives.
I wanted to ask you, in capacity of Deputy General of Tourism, with the Silver Airways, I know in their announcement in midnight, they told customers not to go to the airport. So I guess there were concerns of tourists or people being stranded. Has there been any calls from tourists about, or any officials, and what has been done to help those that may have been stuck in destination?
We are very proactive. Silver was a partner, and they have been really good partners with our family islands. So immediately when there was an announcement that Silver, again, was ceasing operations, the Bahamas Out Island Promotion Board, under the leadership of Carrie Fountain, notified all of the family island properties that might have had persons displaced by Silver's ceasing operations. And so we were able to look at those particular passengers. We were able to offer to Bahamas Air connectivity to get them, again, from the islands into their source markets that Silver really service. At this time, really Fort Lauderdale. And we were able to get them into Nassau. Bahamas has offered some incentives to cause it to happen. And then immediately, some of our smaller carriers who've been really good partners, Jamaica's Air and Tropic Ocean, those who are based in Lauderdale, where Silver really was based also, immediately sprung into action to ensure that there was no displacement of passengers. So we've had minimal, I'm not aware of any persons who have been stranded because of Silver's Air ceasing operations. We've been proactive, we've been responded, and not just in terms of Silver Air ceasing, but immediately afterwards, we were able to introduce airlift in some of the same markets for Silver Air. For Bahamas Air, for example, on the 22nd, 23rd, just next week, they're resuming their service from Fort Lauderdale into Georgetown, a market that Silver really was functioning in. Bahamas Air, Silver was doing the Fort Lauderdale in the Grand Bahama. Bahamas Air announced next week it's ramped up their Orlando Freeport service. Many other carriers are responding, but we are interested in managing the customer experience. Once they come here, we're going to show them a good time, and when things happen, we're committed again to working with displaced passengers. But we have been proactive in our response to Silver Air. We are looking at new airlift, and we're optimistic that we're going to fill those gaps.
So is it to say that with Silver Air, Silver Pulling out, there's not been a significant fallout?
Significant fallout. Silver Airways, we had projected that they would have been bringing about 80,000 passengers between June to December of this year. That's a significant number. So I don't ever want to downplay the contribution that they would have made, especially to our family islands. The numbers might seem small, but I can promise you when you look at the Kobe Luthra or another property that's smaller, that might have 20 persons coming, it might not seem to be a large number, but it's significant of our family islands. But there has been some fallout, but at the same time, we've been proactive in filling those gaps through either Bahamas Air, Western Air, some of our smaller carriers. And I do believe that over the next quarter or two, you'll see new carriers who are coming from some of the markets serviced by Silver Airways to fill all of those gaps that might have been left.
And just to clarify, with those avenues that you were proactive on the day that it was announced that Silver Airways was ceasing operation, how many people may have benefited from those avenues, would you estimate?
I can't estimate a number. I'm sorry, I can't estimate a number. I do know that Silver Airways, at the time, their capacity would have been 70 seats in terms of their aircraft, and there might have been, in terms of that day, about 5 or so active routes. So I think at maximum, you might have had probably about 100, a little over 100 plus persons who might have been looking at travel from the Bahamas back into the Lauderdale area specifically. But we're able to monitor. I really cannot quantify the numbers, but what I can say expertly is that plans sprung into place from that midnight to the promotion board for tourism partners through Bahamas Air to make sure that any displaced passengers, we were able to give them a good experience out of the Bahamas.
And then moving on, Silver Airways as well. I don't know if you're able to speak to this, but one of the things, the question mark people have right now is what happened to those workers of Silver Airways. Is the Ministry of Tourism working with labor to see what they can do to help those workers, or I guess them having other capacity jobs at the airports?
What I would say is, and I'll put it this way, we support Airlift, we support Silver Airlines, but our prioritization is Bahamians first. Where Bahamians are disenfranchised, they have the assistance again of the Department of Labor and the court system. But beyond that, I do know, in the case, for example, I personally know Deputy Prime Minister has made interventions on behalf of displaced Silver employees in Exuma. We've been speaking directly to the CEO of Silver Airlines and the Vice President, and we have reiterated a very strong message that no one will come into this country and mistreat Bahamians. They will get what they are entitled to, and we are committed to supporting any Bahamian who might have been disenfranchised, not just by Silver Airways cessation, but if there are any other matters in terms of labor relations and aviation, we stand on the side of our workers.
And my last question, you said there was some fallout. Can you define it? Is that mainly just the, I guess, ceasing of certain routes?
When I speak about fallout, the definition simply would have been there was about a 1.5 week gap between Silver's stopping operations and Bahamas Air starting operations. So there was a very small window of fallout in terms of the major carriers. Bahamas Air and Silver has the same aircraft in terms of the ATRs. So Silver ceased about a week ago. Bahamas Air announced within a few days that they'll pick up Exuma and they will increase Grand Bahama routes. And beyond that, smaller carriers came in. So when I speak about fallout, several days when there might have been disruption to your sustained airlift, but we have a plan to intensify seat capacity into all of those areas. Thank you very much.